Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line, a program designed to explore issues that, as the name implies, examines business problems and responsibilities that consider more than pure profits. My name is Larry Zicklin, and as always, my colleague is Paul Roth, who will introduce today's guest.
Thank you, Larry. Our guest today is Peter May, who is the president and a founding partner of Trian, which is a private investment fund. Before that, Peter, you were with Triangle Industries and Triarch, where you owned operating companies. You're also an active philanthropist, which we'll get to later in the program. Tell us how an operator became an investor.
Well, I think I was always an investor, but always wanted to be an investor. But first I had to learn something about business, and I started out my career actually in public accounting, basically as a way of learning the fundamentals of business. My original objective was always, my father was a pretty successful businessman and always had a lot of conversations at dinner about his company. He was in the retail business, had a chain of stores around the country, and always was fascinated with what he was doing. So I wanted an education that would give me the language of business, which is what accounting is. So I became a CPA, and then really was active at the firm I worked for a long time until they told me I was going to be a partner, and I said, great, now I'm ready to do something that I really want to do. And I joined one of my clients, Nelson Peltz, who had a small family food business. And
was this food manufacturing or distribution?
It was food distribution. It was basically selling frozen foods and groceries to, or actually just, at that time, just frozen foods, to hospitals, restaurants, institutional companies. And he wanted to build it into a large company and needed a financial guy, and we got to be very friendly. We were same age. And I joined him in 1972, and we built that business into the largest food service distributor in the Northeast by buying companies in groceries and meats and dairy and other products, and ultimately sold it in 1978 to a group that was one of the first leveraged buyouts. We didn't have the term in those days, but it was just a highly leveraged transaction. And our objective then was to find a bigger company to invest in and to build. But we always considered ourselves operating businessmen. That was, we wanted to run companies and build them by building sales and earnings. So we were fortunate in 1978 to take control of a company called, in 1983, I'm sorry, a company called Triangle Industries, which was a New York Stock Exchange company that had a couple of businesses that weren't really attractive for growth. One was in the wire and cable business, and one was manufacturing vending machines. But it had a good balance sheet, and we used it to leverage it, and ultimately made a bid to buy National Can, which was a large packaging company. We then merged National Can and American Can's packaging business, and ultimately created the largest packaging company in the world. This was in the mid-'80s. And we built the company by investing, increasing capital expenditures dramatically. When we bought National Can, it was doing about $1.6 billion in sales and about $60 million in EBIT. EBITDA was not a term in those days, and the depreciation.
Just to make clear, EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes.
EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes. And today, most companies talk about EBITDA, which is earning before interest, taxes, and depreciation, which is a way of measuring cash flow in a company. But you also have to understand that if a company is a capital-intensive business, the DA doesn't belong to you. You got to spend it. And therefore, we looked at EBIT because that was really the operating earnings of the company.
So from running public company and managing it and operating subsidiaries, you moved into the investment management business. Tell us how that happened.
So over the time, after we built Triangle into the big packaging company, we sold it in 1988. and then started another company called Triarc, which ultimately owned Snapple and Arby's. And we built those companies, and we sold Snapple to Cadbury. So we realized that our objective was to continue to invest the way we did, which was to take a stake in a company and work with management to make the company more successful by operating it. But we were up to that point only investing with our own money. And we felt that there were much more opportunities in larger companies where we could take a stake and then try to have influence by getting involved in with the management, by getting on the board or working closely with management to improve them. But that wouldn't work unless we had a bigger pool of capital. And that's when we started Trian Partners and took in outside capital.
So how would you describe Trian Partners in terms of as an investment management firm? I mean, I've heard you called a constructive activist, an activist. How do you describe it?
So we think of ourselves as a derivative of private equity. Okay, we've been, everybody likes to be categorized. Everybody likes to look at investors and put them in a box or put them in a category. So we've been put in the category of activists, meaning that we take an active role in the investments that we make. But what's different about what we do is most activists typically invest in a company where they're primarily portfolio managers by background. They're investors and came out of Wall Street.
The activists are.
The activists themselves came out of Wall Street typically. They came out of working for an investment firm. And so their focus is picking a stock that they think is undervalued and trying to figure out how to get value out of it by agitating. And most of the time that agitation is related to balance sheet kinds of things, by having the company add more leverage and buy back stock so the stock will go up, or having the company sell a division and buy back stock so the stock will go up. And it's really focused on relatively short-term transactional things that will improve the return of that activist's investment. It doesn't necessarily improve the company over the long term.
So let me ask you a question. What enables you to improve the company? Here's a company, it's been any company, it's been in existence a while, knows the industry, has been active. What do you bring to the equation that makes the company better after you've invested?
So what we do, and the difference between us and the activists I've just described, is that their focus is on the balance sheet and our focus is on the operating side of the business. And before we make an investment, we do a deep dive into the company, into the industry. We focus, you just take a step back and think about how Trian is organized. We focus on basically 3 areas of potential investment. One is anything consumer, so it's consumer products, retail, restaurants, consumer services, anything industrial, and I'll get into some examples later, anything industrial, and financial services, but financial services that have an emphasis on the services side. So we wouldn't invest in a bank, a commercial bank or an insurance company where it's almost impossible to understand the nature of their investments. And because we also are very concentrated, we only have 8 or 9 investments at any one time, we invest in larger companies, and we tend to know the entire universe of those companies. So getting back to your question about how do we...
So you know the industry in which they're operating.
We know the industry, we know virtually every company. The scale of our investments are, I would say, 10 billion to, in the case of General Electric, at one point it was $200 billion, not quite right now, to Procter & Gamble, which is over $200 billion. So, and Wendy's is a current investment that's a $5 billion capitalization. So we run the gamut. Our sweet spot is somewhere in the middle. But so we know all the companies that are operating that are public, primarily in the United States, although we have made investments in the UK. And we really we have, great deal of data on every company and how they're functioning. And what we're looking for is a company that's not performing up to where it should be from an operating point of view. So that means either it's poorly managed, which is often the case. Its structure is such that it's hard to really get the kind of maximum performance that it should have. Or it's not using a wide-angle lens to look at market opportunities. It's maybe it's only focused in one market where its product line could be expanded dramatically. But the focus is always on the operating side of the business. We have in our office mugs, our Trian mugs say on one side, sales up, expenses down, and the other side says cash is king. That's really basically the fundamentals of, Nelson always says, I went to college, but I didn't ever finished. I learned that you need to get sales up and you need to get cash flow. And if you can do that, you're successful in business. But it really comes down to almost that simplicity.
Seems like he learned enough.
Yeah, I think he did.
If you're identifying investment opportunities because they're underperforming, how does your relationship with management start when you start talking to them?
Depends on the company, but so the way we identify that they're underperforming is by really understanding their peers and benchmarking and looking at their statistics and their margins and their market shares and things like that. And when we finally pick a company that we think is appropriate, we'll start to buy stock. Once we convince ourselves that it's the right investment, and I would say it can be 6 months to 2 years of work before we actually pull the trigger. We'll start to buy stock and we'll accumulate a stake.
And the company knows nothing about this at the moment.
The company will know nothing about it. We always want to build our stake before we go to the company because it's important. One of the things that's very important is the entry price at which you buy a stock.
And you're operating alone while you're doing this. You don't have others working with you. I mean, Trian's operating alone.
Trian is operating alone, right. We don't partner with other firms, and once in a while we'll use consultants or outside attorneys or whatever if there's a complicated environmental issue or pension issue that we need to get behind. But no, we do all our work ourselves. We have a very strong team. So we'll buy a stake, and then we'll go to management. And at that point, we have written a white paper, and the white paper says, this is what the company looks like today. These are the things we think that they're not doing well, or the opportunities that we think they have, and this is what we think they should do. And if they do that, this is the kind of return that we think we can get by having the company accomplish that.
And you send that white paper to the company?
No, we write it, we read it 100 times, argue about it in our organization, and really get it to a point that we're very comfortable that it is not vulnerable, and we have it. And then we'll call management and we'll say, we have a stake in your company. We'd love to sit down and talk to you.
Why do I have a feeling they don't welcome you with open arms?
We're being a little more welcome now than we were when we started. We have developed a reputation of being constructive with the managements that we work with. No company wants somebody from the outside to tell them they're not doing a good job. I mean, it's just human nature. Everybody wants to feel that they're doing the best they possibly can. And the minute someone from the outside comes in and says, we want to talk to you about how you're running your business, the reaction's going to be negative. It's automatic. In the early days, when we first started doing this, and there weren't very many people in the field of what we do, the first thing that management would do was hire Goldman Sachs or one of the major investment banks, and they'd hire Wachtell Lipton or one of the major law firms, Schulte Roth. No, they wouldn't hire Schulte because Schulte represents us. But they would immediately start circling the wagons to try to figure out how to defend from the so-called attack. We we say we come in peace. We come as shareholders who have the same interest that you have. And that interest is to maximize the value of the company and improve it. And our track record, particularly now that we've been in this business since 2005 and in operating businesses since the 80s, our track record is such that, first of all, our investment hold of the companies that we're actively involved in is about 6 years. So we're not looking for a quick gain. And our objective is to build value over the long term. And so when we talk to management, we say, let's have a conversation. And again, in the early days, there was all kinds of stonewalling, and we'd get, a call from an investment banker, and they want to have a meeting to hear our thesis. Today, most of the bankers are counseling the companies that they should meet with us. And then we'll meet with them, and then we'll have a conversation, and we'll say, we think that, your margins are way below we know your margins are way below your peers. We have a few ideas about why that's happening. We'd love to be on the inside and help you and work with you.
And the definition of be on the inside is a board seat or a couple of board seats?
Depends. It depends. Sometimes if you establish a dialogue with management and they're open to your ideas, you don't have to be on the inside. There are other times, most of the time, be on the inside meaning be on the board. Most times it's important to be on the board because it's hard to have access to the kind of information, either from management point of view where they're trying to show you that what they're doing, or for your own edification to understand what to do. You need to be on the inside.
They know their margins are less than their peers.
But they always have an excuse.
That's what I wanted to get to.
They know their margins are less, but they either, we have structural issues that you don't understand.
Right.
Okay, that our markets are different, or our commodity costs are different, our input costs are different, or our manufacturing structure, or our labor rates, or there's always a reason. Sometimes the reasons are accurate, but most of the time they're not.
Is it a fresh pair of eyes that with a different perspective that really changes things? What's the dynamic?
The dynamic is getting management to kind of think outside the box. So many companies this is one of their answers is when you start questioning the way they do stuff, their answer is, well, this is the way we always did it. And the C-suite, the CEO and leadership of so many companies is made up of people who have been in the company for so long that they don't have a lot of outside views or new ideas that are coming in.
Are many of the companies you invest in, do they consist of boards that have been in place for years and years, so the boards aren't adding the proper oversight?
I would say that's probably predominant, yes. I mean, there are, board refreshment is an issue that we always bring up. Some companies do a better job than others. The interesting thing is, there are a number of board members who are retired CEOs who basically have found a way to supplement or perpetuate their income, and being on 3 or 4 boards, you can earn, typical in the companies that we invest in, typical board comp is somewhere around $250,000 to $350,000 a year. If you're on 4 boards, you're making a nice living. You don't want to rock the boat a lot, because if you're very aggressive as a board member, then you're not going to be reappointed.
So Peter, if you're going to ask for a board seat or 2, that means somebody else is going to have to surrender a board seat or 2.
Not necessarily.
Well, they don't expand the boards normally.
Well, but it depends. I mean, board sizes range all over the place, from 8 or 9 to 14 or 15. When we ask for a board seat, we ask for a board seat to be additive. And typically it's only one seat. And one of the things that's really important to understand is if we go to management and we go to a company and we say, you know, and by the time we get to the point of asking for a seat, we've usually either given them our white paper or gone through it in detail so they really understand what our ideas are. And when we ask for a board seat, if we get one seat or two seats, that's 2 out of 8, 2 out of 10, 2 out of 12, 2 out of 15. At the end of the day, we have to be able to convince the other members of the board and management that what we have to say and what we think the company should be doing is right and is going to work and is going to be actionable. Because at the end, we call it the power of the argument. So we have to be able to get our point of view adopted. And we always say, if you have a better idea, we'd rather be rich than right. So if you have a better idea, let's explore it. Let's see what else can be done. You know, we've been very successful in, once we get into the board, of having companies kind of open their eyes to different ideas.
Have you seen boards change over the 15 years that you've been doing this?
Yes, there's been, you know, there've been a whole bunch of trends that have happened in the boardroom over the last several years. I'll go back to the 70s and 80s when we first started. In the old days, the typical corporate board was the CEO's buddies. It was his golfing buddies, maybe his investment banker, his lawyer, and people who were basically his friends who just did whatever, said yes to everything. And God forbid somebody asked a question that he didn't clear in advance, he wasn't invited to the next board meeting. When Sarbanes-Oxley came in the 80s, I guess, the early 80s, it required a certain percentage of public company boards to be independent. One of the things it also required, which I think is one of the best things that happens in a boardroom, is the need for an executive session. An executive session means that the board has conversation itself without members of management present. And that's, before that, no conversations ever took place without management present. So it's very hard to talk about the flaws of the management. But the main responsibility of a board of directors is to hold management accountable to the strategy that the company and the performance of the company. So once Sarbanes came in, there was more openness in a boardroom. However, the CEO and management still had and still has the ability to have huge influence on who gets selected on a board. And most of the time, it's retired CEOs or sitting CEOs or CFOs from other companies. And it's people with very little, who don't have any investment in the company. So most of the time, the only stock they own is stock that they got as stock options as part of their board compensation. They're looking at their board representation as an allegiance to the company because they're getting compensated and they were brought on by the CEO, and they're typically not people from the industry of that company, and they use, you know, conflict of interest in a way to keep people from getting on a board that really knows what's going on. So if you're on a board in the consumer products business and your, you know, background is working for Caterpillar, you know, you don't know too much about what's motivating a millennial consumer. And when we come into a board, we're coming in with enormous knowledge of what's going on in the company and in the industry and with skin in the game.
So I've seen boards, you know, that may be the old style board, but I've seen some new boards where what they do is identify areas of expertise that they need.
Correct.
In terms of what their business program is going forward in their planning, and they go out and recruit people.
You're right.
And it's quite independent. The nominating committee is quite independent from the CEO in terms of doing that.
You're correct, and there's no question that today, and I think activism and people and firms like us who have held boards accountable have had a big influence. So I do think that today boards are much more, particularly of the larger companies, are much more responsive to the needs of both understanding different components of the company, technology being probably the single most important one, because today we like to say every company is a technology company.
Right.
And most boards don't have, because most of the board members are older, don't have a lot of experience in technology. There's been a huge change in terms of understanding corporate social responsibility.
Let's take a break, because what we'd like to do is continue with some experiences that you had with particular boards in our next segment. But for now, we'd like to thank you, Peter May, for giving us some really interesting insights into what's going on in boardrooms and how to make investments with operating experience and what you can do. We hope our audience join us for our next conversation with Peter. Thank you.
My pleasure.